and he was finally where he had always dreamed of being. Isaac leaned his head back against the airplane seat and closed his eyes for just a moment. Below the clouds, a continent was waiting. History was waiting. His club had never reached an international final before, not once, and yet, against every prediction, every statistic, they were going. The nights when quitting seemed easier. Now he imagined lifting the trophy. The cabin lights were dim. Most of his teammates were laughing softly, some already asleep. It felt like destiny, like nothing could stop them now. But somewhere between ambition and irresponsibility, a decision had already been made, and that decision was flying with them. That night, they were flying in search of glory. But sometimes our greatest victories collide with decisions we never made, and those decisions belong to someone else's evil. Isaac had been with the club for 2 years. 2 years of modest stadiums, long bus rides, and contracts that barely made headlines. But that season something had changed. They weren't supposed to be there, not in the semifinals, not fighting for an international final, not carrying the hopes of an entire city. The second leg had been played at home. Their stadium was small, but that night it felt like the center of the continent. The aggregate score gave them a fragile advantage. A draw would be enough. 90 minutes of pressure. The opponent attacked relentlessly, every clearance followed by another wave. Isaac didn't score that night. He defended. He tracked back until his lungs burned. Every tackle felt like it carried the weight of the entire season. When the final whistle finally blew, the scoreboard read 0-0. Then the stadium erupted. A draw had never felt so victorious. They had survived, and survival was enough to make history. That night, the city didn't sleep. Isaac stood in the middle of the pitch, hands on his hips, staring at the stands as thousands of people chanted the club's name, the first international final in its history. But victory requires logistics, and logistics require decisions. The first leg of the final would be played away. Another country. The team needed to travel, and quickly. They chose a commercial flight for the first stretch of the journey, routine, safe. From there, they would board a chartered aircraft to complete the final leg. It seemed practical, efficient. What they didn't know was that the company operating that aircraft was not as stable as it appeared. Behind the paperwork, behind the authorizations, there were cracks. The airline had been struggling financially, delayed payments, operational pressure. Its owner was not only the businessman, he was also the pilot. And when survival depends on numbers, numbers begin to matter more than margins of safety. There were costs to be reduced, fuel calculations to be adjusted, contingencies to be reconsidered. Somewhere far from the noise of the stadium, a decision was made. A technical decision, a profitable decision, but not a safe one. While Isaac packed his boots and replayed that 0-0 victory in his mind, someone else was calculating distances. Someone else was choosing economy over certainty, and none of the players knew that the greatest opponent they would face wasn't waiting in a stadium. The British Aerospace 146 was now less than 40 minutes from destination. Inside the cabin, nothing suggested danger. A journalist reviewed footage on his camera. A midfielder laughed softly, had a message on his phone. Someone asked for water. It felt routine. Inside the cockpit, routine had ended. Fuel remaining was now below projected arrival numbers. The alternate airport option was behind them. Ahead, the destination airport was busy. Evening traffic. Sequencing delays. The co-pilot ran the numbers again. If we declare Mayday, we get priority. It was true. A Mayday declaration would give them immediate landing clearance, direct approach, no holding pattern, They would land with engines still running. With minimal reserve, yes, but legally protected under emergency authority. And every pilot knows this. Low fuel is not shameful. Running out of fuel is. The captain stared ahead. Declaring Mayday would trigger paperwork, investigation, scrutiny of the flight plan, fuel calculation review, and that would expose the truth. The baggage weight had never been confirmed. Reserves had been trimmed deliberately. Margins had been pushed. Declaring emergency meant admitting miscalculation, possibly negligence, possibly worse. The co-pilot spoke again, quieter this time. "We are below final reserve projection." Silence. Air traffic control came through the radio. "BAE 146. Expect holding due traffic congestion." Holding, a circular pattern. Additional miles, additional minutes. Fuel they did not have. The co-pilot looked directly at the captain. "We cannot hold." Another pause. The captain pressed the transmit button. "Roger." Entering holding. It was a choice, not a necessity. Inside the cabin, seatbelt signs illuminated. Players assumed it was routine sequencing. A journalist resumed typing. Outside, the aircraft entered its holding pattern. A wide arc in the dark sky, each turn consuming fuel, each minute erasing options. The engines continued running, but fuel flow indicators were approaching numbers that should never be seen in normal operation. The co-pilot's voice was no longer neutral. "We need priority." The captain's jaw tightened. "If we declare now, they'll ask why we didn't earlier." Below them, runway lights blinked in the distance, close enough to see, too far to reach comfortably. The aircraft wasn't failing. It wasn't damaged. It was simply running out of the one thing that keeps airplanes honest. Fuel is margin, and they had traded margin for money. Another turn in holding. Another reduction in available thrust margin. Inside the cabin, Isaac felt a subtle change. Not turbulence, drag. The engines no longer sounded strained. They sounded thinner. In the cockpit, a warning tone blinked briefly. "Fuel low advisory." The co-pilot whispered, "This is our last turn." The captain looked at the runway lights again, still refusing the word, still refusing the call. Mayday. And below them, time was evaporating. Isaac was awake, eyes closed, listening to music when his phone vibrated with a low battery alert. He frowned. The phone was plugged into one of the power outlets provided on the aircraft. He unplugged it and connected it again. Nothing. The battery continued to drop. He removed his headphones. That's when he noticed the engines. The sound wasn't gone. It was fading. The aircraft felt lighter, almost hollow. Then everything shut down. Lights out. Screens black. The steady vibration disappeared. For a brief second there was complete silence. Then came the wind, loud and raw. Air tearing along the fuselage. He waited for the captain's voice. Nothing came. A flight attendant walked quickly to her seat and strapped in. No announcement, no explanation. The plane trembled. Not turbulence. A loss of thrust. A sharp alarm began to sound. Passengers woke. Confused voices filled the dark cabin. Isaac turned to the teammate beside him. They locked eyes. There was no panic in that look. There was weight. A quiet acceptance neither of them wanted to name. His teammate's jaw tightened. His eyes glistened, but he didn't speak. They both understood. The wind grew louder. The aircraft shook violently now. Prayers began across the cabin, low at first, then urgent. Isaac closed his eyes. He saw his child, his wife. He didn't think about the match anymore. He thought about goodbye. The aircraft descended fast. Outside, rain and darkness erased all reference points. The airport was only a few kilometers away, close enough to almost see safety, too far without power. The ground rose invisibly beneath them. Then impact. The aircraft struck a hillside in the dark. Metal tore. The structure collapsed, and everything went black. Consciousness returned slowly. Cold rain on his face, the smell of earth and fuel. Pain before memory. He tried to breathe. The air burned. He tried to move. His body refused. He didn't know how long he had been there. Minutes, hours, voices echoed somewhere through the trees. A beam of light cut through mist. Someone was walking near the wreckage. Slow steps. Searching. A pause. Then the light stopped over him. A voice called out to others. He felt hands moving debris, branches, twisted metal. He tried to respond. Only a faint sound came out, but it was enough. They pulled him from the wreckage, barely responsive, barely breathing, alive. Later, he would learn how close they had been to landing, how close they were to safety. He would learn about the fuel, about the decision not to declare emergency, about calculations that left no margin. He survived the impact, but survival does not erase the fall. He would always remember the silence before the wind and the look in his teammates' eyes, the moment they both understood, not because the sky failed, but because someone did. A fall into darkness and into the unknown, a negligent descent toward someone else's evil.